Terminó.
We've just seen the trailer for Erica's film, and I want to share a little bit more with you about it, and then we'll get to talk with Erica and ask her a few questions. This independent project was realized by a small international female crew who embrace reciprocal methodologies, approaching storytelling with reflexivity and subject participation in mind. Each filming expedition included the facilitation of zine podcast workshops with the collaborating communities. And these collective works have gone on to make appearances at Zine Fest, and select podcast soundscapes are introduced throughout the film. In solidarity, Shadow Weavers aspires to make visible the struggles of cultures that are fighting to promote the relevance of their unique cosmovision. As the director and producer, Erica's vision is to celebrate the intersections that leave us spanning worlds and making meaning in between.
My name is Nguyen. I'm a first-generation Vietnamese American who grew up in California. I'm now splitting time in northern New Mexico and California. And yeah, I grew up kind of learning Spanish. That is part of my Asian diaspora and landing in a different place and coming from a culture that then became very assimilated into what it means to be American. So yeah, my studies were really informed by an interdisciplinary approach at UC Berkeley around anthropology and ethnographic studies and filmmaking, sociolinguistics, Spanish. So this like big intersection, and the project that I decided to take on in a very independent format was really framed around this like question that I wanted to continue to explore around like the estrangement of our origins and how that manifests in our bodies.
What made you and your team want to create this film? You had to go to Peru, there was a lot of travel, there was a lot of research. What kind of led you there?
You know, I landed in this question of identity, probably because I myself sort through that question a lot. And I kind of discovered a gap in research around language, but how it exists in a physical form. So this documentary, it's my first documentary feature, and it's really this like collective portrait of Peruvian hat makers and how they're stewards of a dying language. And that dying language is the space that hats occupy in this particular story. Colors, patterns, the way that you wear your hat, the way you gesture with it, really speaks to who you are, your sense of place and belonging. Been so much study around textiles, you know, there's a big fascination with textiles, and I think
clothing, textiles,
really, who we are and why we wear the things that we do to signal, you know, our heritage and those, you know, where we stand in society. So I kind of stumbled upon it and decided to go, because that was the only really way to learn and know, because there was just so little out there to like research from afar. And so I began work with a documentary collective called Docu Peru, and they were facilitating workshops along the coast for a couple of years. And these were community workshops that were aimed at basically giving people a means to share their stories in lots of different ways. So photography, zines, murals, documentary. So I worked with them for 2 years and felt like I understood how to navigate a production in Peru and how to be more reciprocal.
So you worked with a local collective.
Yeah. So I worked with them for a couple years and really found a methodology that seemed appropriate. You know, as far as not wanting to come in and ask for people's personal stories and leave and that's it. And they are aware of that commodification of their culture. So it was cool to learn in a more like participatory way where they, you know, going to them as the experts because we really know nothing. We have some ideas of topics and questions in a line of questioning. But yeah, you really kind of have to go and be there.
As an explorer.
Yeah. Open-mindedness,
Your team, was it mostly women?
We're all women.
All women. Yeah. What does a woman's perspective or a woman being behind the camera bring to film or documentary filmmaking?
Yeah, I think that's a really important perspective right now that's being valued a bit more than it has in the history of this industry. I guess maybe I'd start with like a kind of the perspective that Dorothea Lange had around, you know, the camera as this instrument that retrains us to see. And I think that within that development of like our noticing and being able to read the world around us in different ways, that as a woman myself, there's this like inherent empathy that can emerge when you're working and collaborating with other women, whether they're on your team or they're on the other side of the camera, and that we're collaborating together, that they're not a subject. They're, you know, we're on this equal footing.
Making the film together. There's this quiet observatory beauty that comes across in the imagery and even the way that the questions are asked in the trailer that seems very feminine to me as an observer.
Yeah, I think that like in that whole development of like how we go about seeing using a camera as like the object through which we can do that and be really intentional, and it's a small frame, you know, there's lots of other things going on. There's lots of, especially during production, the clues in which you like decide to follow through or not, and that receptivity to watching something unfold rather than having some kind of set idea of what it needs to be, especially in a medium that's like a lot more open than narrative film, you know, like there is not a script. Like the script came after I learned all kinds of different things. The willingness to see with our whole selves, understand like the cultures that we come from, the ones that we're really trying to go and learn more about, and then kind of like dismantling the things that we thought we were going to find is a big part of
your preconceptions.
Yeah.
So while you were at WISC, you were working intensely on the editing of the film, kind of headphones and a computer. What is that like? What is that process like? And what are you looking for?
You know, editing, I'm the director, the producer, the editor. I like occupy way too many roles, and that's a big that's been a big learning curve for me. Honestly, I've edited out of necessity, not for like the love of the art form, and it's so integral, obviously. You can do all of the work up until that point, but if it is not illustrated and woven, and so much of the storytelling happens
editing
on that timeline. So yeah, it was a huge shift from the excitement for me that I found a lot more comfort and like ease and of like expression with traveling around with a bunch of my close like girlfriends who are like magnificent artists that I really respect a lot, and getting to interact with the people and, you know, the problem solving of getting from place to place, all of these things, the smells, the colors, all of that there.
You enjoyed the process of travel and filming and being with your friends, but it was different from editing.
Yeah. Two different worlds really of like, you know, exploring a country and a culture and so many different people, and like the camaraderie in our little crew of ladies doing something that hasn't been done before, learning together, and just like the colors and the smells and the food and the marketplaces and all of that was really, really dear to all of us. And so entering into this other really solitary world of like me and a screen and headphones and like blocking out everything, it's really kind of an opposite practice that I had to, I was really resistant to.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of that resistance in me to like cherish that as part of the process. But then I found myself too, once I got into the groove here, and the solitude and quiet and the lack of just noise coming from the outside world, I really started like reconnecting with the characters, with what they had said, just becoming more and more familiar with things that had been shot 2 years prior. And I hadn't necessarily remembered entering that person's home and that particular conversation that we had and the way that they said it, and how moved they were as they were sharing. So I found myself like sitting there smiling by myself and like,
this is great.
Yeah, just like reconnecting with that work, and finding a love for it, and then like getting my chops up. And so by the time I was done here, I walked away with like the first like rough cut and all these big chunks that were assembled in it. It was really great. It was really, really, really useful.
What women inspire you in your work? You talked a little bit about the interdisciplinary and sort of academically, anthropologically informed approach to your filmmaking. What women artists or women in your life or women friends inspire your work?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have a lot of heroes that are my friends.
Yeah. Well, you're a rock climber. Erica is a rock climber and guide, so she has a whole life as an outdoor person, an adventurer.
I mean, with regards to like this film and the people that I came in contact with, I think their spirit of connection and cosmovision was so much greater than I was ever able to find in my own travels, personally, or on a rock, or
the collective energy was really big.
It was really big, yeah. And I think a lot of the collaborators were huge heroes to me, but a name that comes to mind is Maxima Cunha, and she was awarded an environmental award in 2016. She's from Cajamarca, where we spent a bunch of time in Saladin, and they've been trying to protect their land and waters, and we all know the importance of water as life-giving, and so she really just stood her ground against a huge mining corporation that represents the gold industry. And yeah, I mean, she fought back against a lot of intimidation because she knows the importance of water and the connection that they have to that land that they've been working for centuries, and the animals that she cares for every day. And it was really awesome to see some of her comrades in that work that weren't her and haven't been recognized in that way. It kind of like reminds me of how she accepted the award, which was really humble, that she sang a song about the things in her environment, the plants and the birds and the what she sees every day, and the power that they hold, and that gives her a fighting kind of resilience.
Yeah.
And so we actually did get a chance to capture some other similar songs. That was still inspiring to me today, and why I feel the need to make this. That it needs to come to light. So.
Thank you, Erica, for joining us. How wonderful to hear more about your project. If you want to see and hear more about Erica's work, the film should be done within maybe a year, and you can check out her website about the collective.